We're here on the final hearing. Mr. Alley's with us for the department. I'm not sure about, Ms. Nelson's with us for CASA. Okay. Mr. Ratliff is with us representing the children. Mr. Jackson is with us representing Mr. Portillo. Mr. Michelson is with us representing the mother, Miss Roby, who is with us. Mr. Adams is with us representing Mr. Hathaway, the presumed father for Armani. I show he's incarcerated. Were you expecting him, Mr. Adams?
Yes, we had a arrangement set up with the prison. I think there may be a phone number.
Online? Yeah, let me get that and see if that's your client.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, you're gonna have to speak up a little.
Yes, sir, I am.
Okay, all right. Mr. Hathaway is with us along with his attorney, Mr. Adams. That accounts for all the parties except for Miss Leal, who was an intervenor represented by Travis Tidmore. Neither of them are in the waiting room. I don't know that we were expecting them. I haven't seen them in quite some time. So, okay, I have Brandy Coberly, Melissa Dominguez, and Krista Leal. Oh, Krista Leal, she is here. Get her in.
Brandy Coberly is with CASA.
Okay.
And Melissa Dominguez is placement judge.
Okay.
She'll be
a witness.
She'll be a witness, Your Honor.
She'll be a witness, Your Honor.
Okay.
And Judge Travis Tidmore had jury duty this morning. Grand jury. He does it every Wednesday. So he said as soon as that's done, he'll hop on.
Okay.
And he and I have been in contact, Your Honor, so I don't think that he's opposed to our position. Thank you, Your Honor. I would call Mr. Tim Koval. And where are they currently placed?
They are placed with relatives in Gray County.
And is that with the Dominguez family?
It is.
Who are those relatives?
That is the maternal uncle of these two children.
And how long have the children been in that particular home?
Since Thanksgiving of 2022.
So 11 months or thereabouts.
Yes.
And how are they doing in that home?
They are thriving in that home. Armani is in kindergarten this year. He's 5. And Abriam is in daycare using a Head Start curriculum. And so it's basically pre-K for her. And they're involved in extracurriculars. She's in gymnastics and he's in martial arts and t-ball.
The Dominguez's, have they been making sure that the boys, all of their medical and dental appointments are being made?
Yes.
The children are very young. Are they in counseling or have they been in counseling?
Yes, they continue to be in counseling. Armani has been in individual counseling, and then both of the children are in family counseling along with their mom.
And have the Dominguez's made sure that the boys reach all of their counseling sessions?
Yes, and just to clarify, it's a boy and a girl. Abriam is a girl.
I apologize. Do either of the children have special issues or special needs at this time?
No, they are developmentally on track and they're physically healthy.
Prior to being placed in the Dominguez home, the children had been placed in other family members' homes?
Yes, they have been placed with a maternal aunt, Kelly Cummings.
And at the time of that change, was there conversations between Miss Roby, the Dominguez's, Miss Cummings, and Miss Leal about changing the placement?
Yes.
And was that an agreeable place to have these children at in the Dominguez home?
Yes, there was a strong consensus that was where they needed to be.
Do the Dominguez's have any other children in that home?
They do. Melissa has 3 children. One of them's in college and is not in the home, but then there are 2 high school daughters of hers that live in the home.
Have you been able to observe the children in the home?
I have.
And what are your observations?
My observations are that they are very well bonded with Johnny and Melissa. There's a lot of affection there and they're very comfortable there. Whenever I am there, the kids seem to be happy and content with their placement, and they They interact in a very close way with both Johnny and Melissa. There's a lot of hugging and snuggling. So it's a good home for them.
Have the Dominguezes taken steps to become a licensed foster home?
Yes, they became licensed on June 29th of this year.
And does that mean that they passed background checks and criminal history checks?
Yes,
That they don't have any substance abuse issues?
no substance abuse issues.
Or in that home, or the children, is that a positive place for the children?
It is.
The children's mother is Candace Roby.
Yes.
Miss Roby had a substance abuse issue when this case started.
Yes.
She was ordered to work a series of services to help alleviate that substance abuse issue and the neglect issues with her children.
Yes.
Did she work the services that she was ordered to work?
After a pretty lengthy period at the beginning of the case of not doing anything or maintaining contact, she did begin to work services and establish contact with me around the time that she went into inpatient rehab, which was late January, beginning of February of this year. And so she has worked services since that point.
So she went to inpatient rehab,
Yes.
and from the time that she went to inpatient rehab, she has made efforts to work the services for the department.
She has.
Has she completed the services listed in her service plan?
She has.
Is she currently working?
She is currently working. And what I'll say about her job is that the service in her family plan was for her to maintain employment for 6 months. She did begin working in June. So 6 months has not elapsed, but she has obtained employment and she has maintained that employment.
Where is she working?
She is working at SWM, which is a large machine shop operation in Pampa. She's also going to school in a phlebotomy program through Amarillo College, and she's doing her clinicals right now for that at Northwest Hospital.
The father to Aubriana is James Hathaway, is that correct?
Actually, the father of Abrium is Esteban Portillo.
All right, and I apologize, I get them mixed up. Now, did we have a genetic test for Mr. Portillo?
We did.
And was that genetic test determinative as to that he was the father to Abrium?
Yes, I believe it was 99.99%.
And if the court has not done so, are you asking the court to adjudicate Mr. Portillo as the father at this time?
Yes.
Since the tests have been completed and the results were filed with the court, has Mr. Portillo begun working services for the department?
We have not asked him to work services as of yet. It was a recent result on that genetic test, and with the mediation and everything, we've been. He's been in contact with me, and there hasn't been a problem with contact. We just have not asked him to work services as of yet.
And has he had any contact with his job?
Not yet, but there's been plans made to have a family gathering in which he would be invited to come and see Abrium without actually being introduced as the father just yet, but just to be around her and to be introduced to her.
Do you have any concerns about Mr. Portillo's background or any checks that you've made on him?
No concerns about him at this time.
Do you know if he is working?
He is working.
Do you know where he works?
I don't have that information in front of me.
The father to Armani is James Hathaway.
The father of Armani, yes, is James Hathaway.
Mr. Hathaway is currently incarcerated TDC. Okay. Mr. Koval, I asked if Mr. Hathaway was currently incarcerated in TDC.
He is.
And do you know what he's incarcerated for?
The incarceration was for possession of, trying to remember if it was specifically a controlled substance or marijuana, but it was a drug possession charge as well as burglary of a habitation. It was a felony, a couple of charges.
Do you know how long he is going to be required to stay in the TDC?
I believe that the records that I looked at for TDCJ were that he's going to be released in 2024, if not before.
Have you had contact with Mr. Hathaway about any services he may be able to work while he's in prison?
When he was in the Gray County Jail, I did meet with him a couple of times and did go over his family plan, gave that to him. The contact has been limited since then. We have not recommended termination of his rights, and his ability to work services is limited while he is incarcerated.
And can you tell us how long he's been incarcerated in the prison system?
I think that it was around September that I found out that he was in Gray County Jail, and he's been incarcerated since that time. September 2022. I'm sorry.
So for the length of the case, he's been incarcerated.
Yes.
Today, what is your recommendation as to how this case should be completed?
A recommendation is for permanent managing conservatorship to be granted to Johnny and Melissa Dominguez of these two children, that Candace Roby be named possessory conservator of the subject children, that Candace Roby's visitation follow a step-up schedule toward an eventual goal of standard visitation, and that each of the parents, that would be Candace Roby, James Hathaway, and Esteban Portillo, be ordered to pay child support. For Mr. Hathaway, child support would begin when he is released from incarceration.
All right, so let me talk to you about some of those things. First of all, there's been some conversation as to whether or not the department can help with finances if the department is named permanent managing conservator as opposed to naming the Dominguez as permanent managing conservator. Have you looked into that situation?
My understanding of that, while it is limited, is that they would not be eligible, the Dominguez would not be eligible for PCA, permanency care assistance, until 6 months after the licensed placement began. The licensed placement began June 29th, so they would not be eligible for PCA until at least December 29th.
And if they're not eligible for PCA, does that mean that they cannot get funding even if the department is named as PMC?
I would say that my understanding is that they couldn't, but I'm not the expert on the financial aspect of things.
All right. But the children are doing well and would be in a positive place if they are left with the Dominguezes.
Yes.
Now, Miss Roby, your recommendation is that she would have stepped up visitation.
Yes, sir.
And recently, she went from 4 hours of unsupervised visits to 8 hours of unsupervised visits.
Well, she had 2 hours for a long time. And then just the past several weeks, we upped to 4 hours. And then this past weekend, she had 1 8-hour visit.
And so would your step up include a couple of more 8-hour visits and then a couple of overnight visits before she began having standard visitation?
Subject to my supervisor's approval, that sounds reasonable.
And have you discussed that with the Dominguezes? Are they on board with that?
They're on board with that.
Have you talked with them about PMC to them as opposed to the department?
Yes.
And what have they told you about that?
My understanding from discussions with them is that they're on board with whatever allows them to have some financial support. If they could get child support, that's basically just as good as, coming from the department versus coming from the parents. As long as they get some assistance, and as long as there's a safety plan that if the visitation with Candace led to some concerns about her losing her sobriety, then they want it to be fairly easy for them to make some alterations to the visitation, just to protect the
Do
children.
you know what Miss Roby is making at her current place of business or her current work?
I don't know her exact income. I do know that she has been working overnights quite a bit. That's been her regular shift. And employees of SWM make more for working the overnight shift as opposed to the daytime shift.
Mr. Portillo has just recently been determined to be the father. And you said he was working. Do you know what kind of work he does?
I do not know what kind of work Mr. Portillo does.
Have you talked with him about paying minimum wage child support also?
I have not had a discussion with him about that. I believe that when we had mediation that may have come up, but I haven't talked to him directly about minimum wage child support.
Have you talked with him about visitation with his child?
We have talked about it just in general about, an opportunity to come and be maybe at a family gathering and to be able to see her without getting into the relationship.
Are you asking the court to order any visits for Mr. Portillo at this time?
We would like to see supervised visitation. I think that would be appropriate. If the kids are with the Dominguezes, if that's where the placement continues to be, then placement could supervise that. They've got a good relationship with Mr. Portillo, and I think they would be okay with that. And I apologize. Can I have 30 seconds to plug in the power cord on my laptop? I thought that it was fully charged, but I just got a message and I don't want to get lost here. So I will be right back. I apologize.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Abbott.
Thank you, Your Honor. Now, Mr. Hathaway, is it your understanding he has a limited job history prior to his incarceration?
Yes, I don't know a lot about his job history prior to his incarceration.
So would you ask that Mr. Hathaway be ordered to pay minimum wage child support after he is released from prison?
Yes.
As far as Mr. Hathaway's visits, would you ask that those be restricted to a minimum amount of time and that they be supervised also?
Yes. And certainly if the kids are with Mrs. Roby, if they were placed with her, then we would not want there to be supervision by Mrs. Roby of those visits because of the past history that she had with Mr. Hathaway.
But if they're with the Dominguezes, we would be agreeable to allow the Dominguezes to supervise those visits.
Yes, with their input as to whether they're comfortable with that.
Do you believe that placing the children in the Dominguezes' home as permanent managing conservators and having the parents be named as possessory conservators is in the best interest of these two children?
Yes.
Now, Miss Roby though she started late, she did work all the services. Do we still have some concerns as to her behaviors, as to why we're not asking that the children be returned to her?
Well, the concern is not about anything that she has done or hasn't done since getting her sobriety and getting on track. The concern is that she does have past CPS history, and that she does have a history of when there is a CPS case that she can get it together, until the case is over, and then have a pattern of relapsing. And she is the parent of 5 children, and the other 3 children that are not in this case, they're all PMC'd to relatives. So it's not to minimize the work that Candace has done since January of this year. She's done everything I've asked her to do, but the concerns mainly are about past history.
And your understanding that the Dominguezes and Miss Roby have a working relationship so that they can communicate together and to deal with these children together.
Yes, I think the one concern is just they have a little bit different parenting styles. And just as in a divorce situation where you have a mom and a dad and kids going back and forth, you have to figure out how to co-parent effectively and deal with those contrasting styles.
Now, when we started this case, Krista Liao intervened, and she had actually filed some petitions at or about the same time that the department did to have the children placed with her. Have you been in communication with her?
Yes, and prior to the placement of the children with Johnny and Melissa Dominguez, I did meet with Kelly and with Krista and Johnny and Melissa, and they were all on board, including Krista, with the placement of the children being with the Dominguezes being the best option that was available.
And have you talked with Miss Liao about the fact that these children, we want the children to be placed permanently with the Dominguezes recently?
I haven't talked with her recently.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Koval. I'll pass witness.
All right, Mr. Michelson.
Thank you, Your Honor. I was concerned Mr. Koval dropped out, but there he is. I see him. Good morning, Mr. Koval.
Good morning.
You provided testimony earlier about the Dominguez's home. Can you describe that home?
It's a brick ranch home. It's in a residential neighborhood as opposed to a rural placement. Has several bedrooms.
Do you know how many bedrooms there are in the house?
There are 3 bedrooms. There's the bedroom that the Dominguezes, the adults are in, and then there are 2 other bedrooms.
Okay, and how many children occupy the house?
There are the 2 high school daughters of Melissa, and then Abriam and Armani.
Okay, and so is it reasonable to conclude that the 2 older children reside in one bedroom and the other 2 children reside in the other bedroom? Actually,
one of Melissa's daughters has a bedroom, the older one, I believe, and then the younger daughter shares a bedroom with Armani and Abriam, who are in bunk beds. They have bunk beds that are in the bedroom with the daughter who has a single bed of her own.
Okay, so there's 3 children in the room, 1 single bed and 1 set of bunk beds.
That's correct.
Okay, and is it true that one of the children is autistic?
No.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Mr. Michelson, are you referring to Armani and Abriam, or are you?
No, Miss Melissa's children.
If there is, I don't have knowledge.
Okay. I was just wondering about the level of services that child required. And you've indicated that they've been there for 11 months?
Yes.
Okay. And was it your impression at the time? I thought I read in an earlier report that Melissa was concerned about taking 2 additional children on because she had 3 children to take care of.
I think that was something that they certainly had to think through and work through. They did have 3 children, but one's in college and is not living there. So it was something that I'm sure you can imagine anyone would have to think about, taking on 2 other children. It's a lot, but it's something that they've managed well.
Okay. And you indicated some delay in Candace's participation in services until she went to treatment. And
Yeah.
so that's been approximately 10 months now.
She went to treatment in late January, beginning of February. So from that time up until now,
So that would be approximately 10 months.
approximately.
Okay, about the same amount of time that the children have resided with the Dominguezes.
Yes,
Okay. And you indicated previously that she's worked her services and that your primary issues were not what she has done or hasn't done, correct?
correct.
Okay. And in terms of visitation, has there ever been any issues where the department has been concerned about the visits with Candace and the children?
No. No,
Okay.
I think the only concern has been that sometimes when, and this was primarily early on, when the kids would return from Candace's, that they would exhibit some behaviors. That's why we made sure that we had therapy in place, because there was an adjustment for them to make to their mom being in their lives on a regular basis again after some time apart.
But that's not unusual for children in a foster setting to, when they have visits with their parents, to have some kind of behaviors once they return.
Correct.
Okay. Is there any reason why visitation can't go to a regular standard visitation?
Well, as I said, the department's recommendation is that we step up toward standard visitation, as you know, as long as it happens without just a sudden jump to, we always do these in steps. We go to 2 hours, 4 hours, 8 hours, an overnight, multiple overnights, a weekend, and so forth.
But wasn't it your testimony earlier that it was rather quickly, it went from 4 to 8 hours?
Well, the 2 hour visits had gone on probably a little bit longer than we normally stick to that limitation of 2 hours. And so we realized that, and then we increased to, a couple of 4 hour visits, and then she's had 1 8 hour visit.
Okay. And in terms of your hesitation to return the children to Candace, you indicated it was because of her past history of substance abuse. This isn't your first case working with somebody with substance abuse, correct?
Correct.
And there are plenty of parents who have had serious histories with substance abuse that ultimately get their children back, correct?
Correct.
Objection, speculation, Your Honor.
Overruled.
I'm just talking about his experience as a caseworker. Okay. Is there any reason in the department's mind why the children can't be returned to Candace? Based on her sobriety, based on her completion of the record, based on her visitation?
Objection, Your Honor. Asked and answered. He's given the reasons already.
So that'll be sustained. He mentioned it, what her past was that concerned him.
I'll pass the witness.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Jackson.
Thank you, Judge. Mr. Koval, you had receipt of the paternity test results for Mr. Patil, didn't you?
Yes, sir.
Do you know, I haven't received those results. Do you know what date those results came out?
I don't have that in front of me at the moment.
Mr. Koval, would it be a fair statement to say those results came out sometime in the month of August?
That's what I was going to say if I were guessing that it was during the month of August.
Okay, thank you. Now, in your testimony, you had said that you had been in contact with Mr. Patil, and he had maintained steady contact throughout the case. Is that correct?
Yes. While he was waiting on the testing, he did get in contact with me occasionally, wanting to know when that testing was going to occur. And we had some hiccups along the way that weren't anybody's fault in this room. But yeah, he maintained contact with me about that, and he's been responsive anytime that I've tried to contact him.
Okay, and Mr. Patil resides in Santa Fe, New Mexico. Is that your understanding?
Yes.
And I take it from your testimony that he has been cooperative throughout the case.
Yes.
As far as, and I believe your testimony was that there were no services requested of Mr. Portillo to work in this case.
Correct.
All right. And Mr. Portillo, in fact, he started asking for paternity testing back in March of 2023. Is that correct? To the best of your knowledge?
It was earlier this year. I can't testify as to the exact month.
Okay. And Mr. Coble, I want to direct you to your, there was a permanency report that was made to the court that you signed off on. It's dated October 13th of 2023.
Yes.
Are you looking at that report, sir?
I do have it in front of me.
Okay. Could I direct you to page 16? Okay. Well, what I'm wanting to ask you about is that the test results, paternity test results came out in August, and you make a recommendation in here, but the only thing that you're asking of Mr. Portillo is just to pay some child support. There's no mention made of any possessory conservatorship rights to this child. Wouldn't that be appropriate for Mr. Portillo?
Yes, and as I testified earlier, we had some discussions in between the court report and this hearing, myself and my supervisor, and so we are recommending that the visitation include not just Ms. Roby, but also Mr. Portillo and also Mr. McCoy.
And you've had a chance to speak with Mr. Portillo on a number of occasions. Are you aware of his relationship with the current placement?
I know that they've been in contact with him. I know that there's not any negative relationship there. It seems to be cooperative.
All right. Are you aware of whether or not they provided him pictures of Abram?
I believe that was discussed. Yes.
Okay. Has Mr. Portillo indicated to you that he was just wanting to get acquainted with this child? Has he mentioned that to you?
Yes. His understanding is that, if he was adjudicated to be the father, that he wanted to be in the child's life. But I think he's very comfortable also with the Dominguez's as a placement for the child.
Now, I would submit to you that's a true statement. And are you aware of whether or not that Mr. Portillo has provided any support or maintenance since he learned that he was the father of this child?
I believe that Melissa did tell me that he provided some support on a couple of occasions.
So would it be a fair statement to say that your discussions with Mr. Portillo are such that he kind of indicated to you that if he's the father of the child and he wants to step up, he wants to be responsible and be a part of that child's life? Would that be a fair statement?
Yes, it would.
Okay. Do you think that would be in this child's best interest?
Yes.
Okay. Pass the witness, Your Honor.
All right. Mr. Adams?
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Coble, you testified you had some conversations with Mr. Hathaway early in this case?
Yes.
And did he indicate to you that he would like to be a part of his son's life?
Yes.
When he's able, after he gets out of prison?
Yes.
And does the department have any problem with him being a part of his son's life when he gets out of prison?
Not as long as he is remaining sober and living life free of violence or other criminal behavior. And there's also some concern about the past relationship that he had with Ms. Roby. And I don't think that it would be healthy for them to be, interacting with one another. But outside of that, if he's able to be an appropriate father, then that's in the best interest of the child.
Okay. Have you talked to him since he's been in TDC?
I really have not spoken with him since he left Gray County Jail and went to prison.
Okay. No further questions, Your Honor.
All right, Ms. Ratliff?
Yes, sir. can you tell me, I'm not sure you stated earlier, when this case, the investigation actually opened in this case?
It was, I believe, February. I know that the case opening date in my system shows February 17th of
Okay.
2022.
And you said that was because of concerns about mom's drug use, is that correct?
Yes.
Isn't it true that prior to this or at this time, Ms. Leal had legal guardianship of the children?
I know that Ms. Cummings had placement of the children. Prior to the case, I'm not sure if there was legal guardianship on Ms. Leal's case or not.
Are you aware that there have been police call-outs due to disputes between Ms. Roby and one of her sisters, whoever had guardianship, at the daycare?
What time frame are you talking about? Are you talking about prior to this case?
Well, Mr. Colville, let me ask you this. As part of you being the assigned caseworker, you've reviewed everything in this case, correct? All the documentation.
Yes.
And that would include the affidavit of removal, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And that's part of your regular duties in being the assigned caseworker, correct?
Yes.
And if I were to tell you that that was one of the reasons that was set forth in the affidavit, would you have any reason to dispute that today?
No. If it's in the affidavit, no.
In addition, when you talk about Ms. Roby's history, isn't it true that the department had been involved with Ms. Roby due to her drug use back to 2012 with one of her other children that is now residing with a different relative under a custody order?
That's correct.
Okay. And pretty much every 2 to 3 years since 2012, the department has had to get involved with this family due to ongoing drug use issues prior to the children coming into care this time.
I would say yes.
And was there also instances of domestic violence or behaviors between Ms. Roby and Mr. Hathaway that put the children at risk and were involved in these prior reports to the department?
Yes.
Okay. During the life of this case, has Mr. Hathaway been able to work any services for domestic violence that you're aware of?
No.
Was Ms. Roby, was she required to participate in a women's group?
She was, and she completed that.
Okay. Do you have any idea what is the intentions with regard to Ms. Roby's and Mr. Hathaway's relationship once he is released in 2024?
I have asked Mrs. Roby about that very recently. She has no intention to resume a relationship with him.
Okay.
We discussed the past toxicity of the relationship, and she has stated that she fully intends to not have any relationship with him.
Are you aware of how long they have been separated? Well, let me strike that question. Isn't it true that Mr. Roby, I got him backwards, Ms. Roby and Mr. Hathaway separated due to his incarceration, correct?
When I got the case, which was in May of 2022, I don't know what their relationship was at that time, if there was an ongoing relationship or not, because she was not in contact with me and I could not locate him at first either. So I can't really answer that question as to when they actually separated from one another.
And at the beginning of this case, Ms. Roby was living with a man by the name of Weldon Black, correct?
She has lived with him at times in the past.
And do you know his relationship to Ms. Roby?
He's the father of one of her other children.
Okay. And isn't it true he has significant history with the department as well?
Yes.
Let's talk a little bit about the Dominguezes, just to be clear. You stated that they became licensed on June 29th. Are you positive it's June 29th or could it be July 29th?
I don't have it in front of me. I'm fairly confident it's June 29th, but I could.
Okay. So the department cannot transfer permanent custody to them until after the children have been are in their home 6 months after licensure, correct?
I know that the financial component of it is that cannot happen until after 6 months.
And when you say financial component, are you referring to what we've called PCA today, or permanency care assistance.
Yes.
Okay. And have the Dominguezes at any time, since they've been offered mutually as with amongst the family members as a placement option, have they ever wavered in their commitment to be a long-term placement to these children if needed?
No, they have not.
Okay. And have there been any issues at all with this placement in the last nearly year that the children have been in that home?
No.
Would you agree with me that the children are happy, healthy, and well-adjusted in that home?
I would agree with that.
Would you agree with me that this is the most stable and consistent environment that they have had during their short lifetimes?
Yes.
And right now, Abraham does not know Mr. Portillo, correct?
Correct.
Okay, but if I am understanding your testimony correctly, and the information that I'm aware of is that there's communication is going well between him and the Dominguezes, correct?
Yes.
And the Dominguezes have provided him with updates, and they're communicating with him openly, correct?
Yes.
Issue is that Abraham doesn't know.
She does not know. Correct.
So we need to kind of phase that in, and there's no problem with that as far as the department sees.
No. We discussed, and they already had in the works a plan in the very near future to get together and have him and Abraham be in the same room without any discussion of the parentage, but just to allow them to be in the same room together and meet each other. I called them to suggest that, and they had already started putting the plan in the works before I suggested it.
Okay. And I don't think you commented on this, and I'm kind of jumping around, but did mother ever give you an explanation as to why she started this case late?
I don't know that she ever answered the question of why she started it late. No.
Okay. And where did you say she's currently employed?
I'm sorry, could you repeat?
Where did you say that she is currently employed?
She's employed at SWM in Pampa.
Okay. Is there anybody else in mother's in Miss Roby's home besides herself?
So right now she is living in the family home that her mother, who passed away last June, had lived in. And that home has Candace living in it. And when the kids visit for unsupervised visits, they come over and stay during that time. But Kelly had lived there. Her sister Kelly had lived there, but has since moved back to her house that she had lived in before.
Okay, so at present it's Miss Roby.
At present, it's just Miss Roby.
Okay, and the family members, Miss Leal, the Dominguezes, Kelly, they're all supportive of Candace's sobriety, right?
Yes,
They want to see Candace succeed. Would you agree with me?
I absolutely agree.
Okay. And right now, you said the children are just getting to 8-hour visits with Candace, correct?
Yes,
There's only been one. Is that also your understanding?
yes.
So what would be the next step from here? How many 8-hour visits are lined up before we go to an overnight?
That's usually something that I run by my supervisor and she approves, but normally you would have a few 4-hour visits, a few 8-hour visits, and then one overnight visit, and then a couple of overnight visits, and you do week to week along a schedule similar to that.
So as we sit here today, in approximately at least a year and a half, if not more, these children have not spent an overnight in their mother's household, correct?
Correct.
And Judge, I'll pass the witness.
Mr. Coble, we talked all around it, but I've not heard, you keep talking about the two fathers' visitation, but the question hadn't been answered. Is the department asking they be named possessory conservators? I haven't heard that word yet.
As I understand possessory conservator, if it just means that they're allowed visitation, then yes, we are in favor of them being allowed to have visitation with the children, supervised by placement is what we are recommending.
You're breaking up. I can't hear you. And I know this is probably a legal question. Mr. Albert, you may can answer it. Is the department's position the fathers should not be named possessory conservators?
No, Your Honor, and I thought the question I asked earlier was that all three parents would be named as possessory conservators, be ordered to pay child support and have visitation.
Maybe if you did, I didn't hear it. He just kept talking about the two fathers having visitation, but okay, that clears that up for me. And then about the stepped up visitation, Mr. Coble, you said do one 8-hour unsupervised, then a couple more 8 hours. Does St. Francis have an actual stepped up visitation plan in writing? Because the family code has one.
We have not put one in writing as of yet, Judge.
Okay. All right. Okay, let's see. We'll go back. Mr. Albee, further questions for Mr. Coble?
None from Mr. Coble, Your Honor.
Okay. Mr. Michelson, anything further?
No questions for Mr. Coble.
Mr. Jackson?
No questions, Your Honor.
Mr. Adams?
No questions, Your Honor.
Ms. Ratliff?
No questions, Judge.
All right. And I guess I need to do. Ms. Leal, Travis Tidmore has still not joined into this hearing. Do you have any questions for Mr. Coble?
Not at this time.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank
All right.
you.
Mr. Abbott, who's your next witness?
Your Honor, I would call Mr. Esteban Portillo. And you reside in New Mexico?
Yes, sir.
Where in New Mexico?
Santa Fe, New Mexico.
And are you employed?
I'm currently unemployed, but I work for the film industry, and I'm union, and we're going through that writer's strike right now. So right now I'm like on unemployment till they come to an agreement. Then we go back to work.
And do you have other children that you are ordered to pay child support for?
No, sir.
Do you have other children that reside in your home?
Yes, I have a 12-year-old son, and I got a 6-month-old baby boy.
Approximately how much unemployment per month are you receiving at this time, Mr. Portillo?
I'm getting the max. It's $488 a week I get, so that would be wow. What is it? 8, 16, about 1,700 a month, I think. Isn't that right?
Would you? And are you in agreement to pay child support based upon what you just told me of a minimum wage amount?
Yes. Yes, sir.
You haven't been able to exercise visitation with your child at this point in time. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. I haven't yet, but I've spoken with the foster parents, and they're willing. I'm actually gonna set something up. We got something set up this week, a couple days, so I could get to know her and start from there.
And you and the Dominguezes have been communicating about your child?
Yes, they're very cooperative with me. They've been sending me pictures. I got to hear her voice. She looks very happy with them. I'm very appreciative of that family.
And do you believe that you'll be able to work with them to build a visitation schedule with them?
Yes, sir.
And do you understand that it would be difficult for her to just be sent with you without supervision or without some family along? That would be difficult for her.
Yes, I understand that. I'm willing to do whatever is best, whatever the state recommends. I'm willing to do whatever I have to do to get to know her.
Thank you, Mr. Portillo. I'll pass the witness.
All right, Mr. Michelson, questions?
Just a brief question, Your Honor. Mr. Portillo, in your opinion, do you believe your relationship with Candace has run its course?
Yes.
Do you have any intentions of reuniting with Candace?
No, sir.
Okay, no further questions.
All right, Mr. Jackson.
Thank you. I'm going to follow up that last question. You're currently engaged to be married, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And that's the mother of the 6-month-old child?
Yes, sir.
That you testified about?
Yes, sir.
Now, you and the Dominguezes, you all have a good relationship, do you not?
Yes, we have a good, really good relationship.
And since you've become involved in this case, you've maintained contact with them as well.
Yes.
And they've kind of shared with you how Abram is progressing and whatnot.
Oh yeah, they share a lot of information with me, and they on a weekly basis always sending me pictures. And
Okay, and since you've become involved in this case, you've always wanted this child to be placed with the Dominguez family. Is that correct?
yes.
Okay. And so would it be your testimony that you're not wanting to split these kids up, are you?
No, I'm not wanting to split them up. I just want whatever is best for Abraham, and until the mother continues to prove herself, or and I'm always there. If it's something were to happen, I'm there to. She can come with me, but I'm not trying to split up. I'm just trying to do whatever's best, and whatever comes in the future. Maybe in the future.
So would it be a fair statement to say, for the time being, you're just wanting to get acquainted with this
Yes.
child and this child to get acquainted with you?
Yes.
And then you're hopeful that someday that can blossom into something more,
Exactly.
and that then you can start getting unsupervised visits.
Oh, exactly.
And do you have a problem with the Dominguez's calling the shots on when that occurs? When
No,
the
no,
time frame occurs?
They've been there doing their job, and I'm willing for them to do whatever. I'm open for whatever.
Okay, and with you being in Santa Fe, you would be able to exercise a visit at least one time a month. Is that right?
Yes, I'll make anything happen. Yes, sir.
And the Dominguezes, have they expressed a willingness for you to start having electronic communications where you can FaceTime with this 4-year-old and
Yes.
setting that up?
Yes, they've been open for that as well.
And would that help to develop your relationship with Abram?
Yes, that's my plan.
Mr. Jackson, I didn't catch what about the once a month in-person visits. I didn't hear his response.
He said, Judge, that he would be able to visit one time a month.
Okay,
He
all
can
right,
make
thank you.
it visit.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And as far as once that you found out the results from this paternity test, that was back in August, is that right?
Yes.
Have you paid the Dominguezes some support and maintenance?
Yes, I've paid them. I sent them money 2 times since August, since I found out.
Okay, what amount did you pay them?
I sent $250 one week, and then another week I sent another $200. So total $450.
Okay, and that's what you paid them today?
Yes.
And, okay. Again, and you're asking to be named as a possessor conservator of this child?
Yes.
And you don't have a problem with paying the child support?
No problem.
Okay. And the things that you're requesting of this court, do you believe that to be in this child's best interest?
Yes, I believe that's in the child's best interest right now.
Okay. I'll pass the witness, Your Honor.
All right, Mr. Adams,
No questions, Your Honor.
Ms. Ratliff.
I'm sorry, I thought my video was on that whole time. Mr. Portillo, why do you believe that it's best that your child remain with the Dominguezes as opposed to going home to their mother at this time?
I just, in my opinion, I believe she needs more time, and I believe the biggest test is when Mr. Vic Hathaway gets out. You know what I mean? I have no hard feelings towards him or anything, but I'm just saying that that's the biggest test. And
Why do you believe that that's the biggest test?
his relationship?
Don't talk over.
I'm sorry.
Y'all don't talk over each other.
I'm sorry. Because they've had a toxic relationship, and I'm just a little concerned over that. And I know how relationships can come back. You know what I mean?
Right. What's the history of your relationship with Candace?
We our families are kind of connected in a certain way. You know what I mean? Her family is real close to my family, so I've known her for a while, and how do you say, we would get together at times. And I as well have been a victim of addiction. I've been clean for 4 years, so it was around those times. So I kind of know the environment, and that's why I just believe she needs a little bit more time. And I think the placement of the kids are good where they're at right now, and I just, it's family, and I know her and her brother are very close, so I think she just needs to, there's no worries of the children right now, just time and to prove yourself.
Thank you, past witness.
All right. Mr. Portillo, Ms. Ratliff hit on this, but I mean, I'm interested in what your relationship with her was. Were you two just kind of hit and hook up, and then That's it, or did
Yes.
you have, at some point, you have more of a romantic relationship?
A very small relationship, but we would see each other throughout the years, like, because I'd go back to Pampa and we would hook up at times, but it was never no long relationship or nothing like that.
Okay, so you never lived together, started trying to
No.
build a life together?
No, never.
And do you have any kind of relationship with her now? Have you,
No,
you
I
may
don't.
not have had any reason to have to talk to her even during this case, not knowing whether you were the father, but do you have any type of ongoing, and I don't mean romantic, I just mean, are y'all able to get along, or have you even had that chance?
Maybe in the future we might be able to, but we haven't had a chance, and we haven't. I spoke to her only one time since this case.
Yeah, okay. That's fair enough. That answers my question. Thank you. Okay, anyone else have further questions for Mr. Portillo?
No, sir.
No, Your Honor.
Okay. All right, let's take about a 5-minute break and then we'll resume.
You and Mr. Dominguez are the foster parents to Armani and Abraham, who are the subject of our suit today.
That's correct.
When were these two children placed in your care?
In Thanksgiving of 2022.
And how are you related, if you are, to Candace Roby, the mother of these two children?
She is my sister-in-law.
And she and your husband are siblings?
Yes.
Now, what kind of relationship have you developed with these two children?
At first, they were a little hesitant, I think, to connect with anybody, if that makes sense. But now I think, Abraham, especially, if I try to leave her something, she gets upset. So there's an attachment there, as well as with Armani. So I would say that the relationship between them and me and Johnny is all really well. There's a good attachment there.
And are you meeting all of their needs?
Yes, for sure.
Do you make sure that they go to all their medical and dental and counseling appointments?
Yes,
Do you have other children?
I do. I have 3 daughters. One is in Canyon, currently at college, and then 2 high school daughters that live in the home.
And have they developed a relationship with these two children?
Yes. Yes, they have.
Would you describe the relationship between your girls and these two children as close?
I would say yes. When the girls come in from school, if the kids are here or vice versa, they greet each other. And my middle daughter helps do Abraham's hair a lot, things like that. So there's a great relationship there.
Are you and your husband asking that these two children be left in your home for the time being?
Yes.
Now, you have recently become foster parents, is that right?
That's right. I believe the date is June 29th.
Okay. And the question has arisen is whether or not you want to be named as permanent managing conservator of these two children and have the department dismissed out, or if you want the department to be named as permanent managing conservator of these two children, in which case we would have to continue to oversee what you're doing. Do you have an opinion in one way or the other about that?
I'm really okay with whichever way it goes. I guess the only reason why we were considering keeping it with the department is to be able to get the PCA agreement in place. And the biggest reason for that is just to try to get the kids to be able to keep their Medicaid, and to have a backup source of financial help in case we do not receive child support as we're supposed to.
Now, it's my understanding that you're not eligible for the PCA agreements for another 3 or 4 months. Is that correct? Is that your understanding?
Correct, till December. And then if I understand correctly, Teresa Ratliff said that usually it takes about a month after that to get that complete and everything.
So you have some concerns about financial help. Would you rather wait and be able to get that financial help in 3 months, or do you want the department out? I guess that's my question.
I guess my main concern is health insurance. I know that if we don't go with the PCA agreement, they would lose their Medicaid, and we financially don't qualify for Medicaid. And so I would have to add them. So that's my main concern. So if we were able to wait to at least be able to keep that Medicaid for the children, that would be, I think, in their best interest. But if the court decides that's not the best idea, then I'm okay either way.
All right.
We'll figure it out.
Let me talk to you about some other folks involved in this case.
Okay.
Candace Roby is these children's mother. And she's been sober now since January of 2023. Have you noticed the difference between what your relationship with her now than it was prior to January?
Yeah, it's a huge difference, like night and day. Things are very rocky at the beginning of the year, and now it's just, I can have a conversation with her and she's a lot more agreeable and easy to communicate with. So there's a huge change. Yes.
Is there a reason that in your mind that the children should remain in your and Johnny's care as opposed to going home to Candace?
I think the main thing is kind of what's already been mentioned. Johnny and I just feel like she needs a little bit more sobriety under her belt. She's doing very well, and I don't want to take away from that. 8 or 9 months of sobriety is awesome. But I feel like just long-term sobriety is kind of would be more comfortable. And given the fact of how much the kids have had to move around and stuff in their little life, I just feel like it's safe to keep them with us for the current time being.
And would you agree to continue to allow Candace more extensive visitation as time goes?
Yes.
Do you have any problems with her having unsupervised visits with the children?
No, not at all. I think so far they're going well, and the kids enjoy it. So, and I think it's good for them.
And but you are asking that if you're named permanent managing conservator, that Miss Roby be ordered to pay you some child support.
Yes.
Now, Mr. Portillo has testified that he has a pretty good relationship with you also. Have you been in communication with Mr. Portillo?
Yes, we have a lot. Like he said, probably on a weekly basis.
And his testimony is that you've been sending him cards and letters and updates on the children. Is that correct?
Yeah, we've sent him quite a few pictures through Facebook. Johnny actually has his phone number, so he texts him pictures sometimes, and things like that. So yes, we've been in constant communication.
And do you have an arrangement made so that Mr. Portillo and Adrian can meet sometime in the near future?
Yes. He is in town this week, and so we plan to get him around her and introduce them a couple times this week. Yes.
But you don't think that it would be good for Adrian for her to be able to go with Mr. Portillo over long term or overnight or anything like that?
Not yet. No.
And you're okay supervising any visits between Mr. Portillo and his daughter at this time?
Yes. I think with the way Abraham's personality is, she would be most comfortable with people that she's comfortable with being present.
Do you have any kind of a relationship with Mr. Hathaway?
No.
His background is somewhat daunting. Would you agree with me that it would be best for Armani if Mr. Hathaway's visitation was restricted and supervised?
I would agree. Yes.
And do you and Johnny think that y'all would be capable of supervising those visits?
Yes.
But you want them to be very short once Mr. Hathaway is released from prison?
Yes, and I feel like he like I think someone previously asked, has he worked any kind of services? I think he should be required to work certain services as well.
Do you feel that you could be protective to make sure that these children are not placed in Mr. Hathaway's care or around Mr. Hathaway when he would be dangerous to the children?
Yes.
Do you feel like you would be this protective if Miss Roby was to relapse and not place these children in a position where she would be possible danger to the children?
Yes.
Thank you, Ms. Dominguez. I'm going to pass the witness, Your Honor.
All right, thank you, Mr. Michelson.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Dominguez, you briefly touched on your children, 2 high school children and a college child, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And could you tell me who Dane Moman is?
He is my nephew from a past relationship.
Okay. And how old is Dane?
He's 14.
Okay. And does he reside with you?
No, he's a frequent visitor, so he's been over quite a bit, but he is currently staying with his dad.
Okay. And was there a period of time he was living with you?
No, there was a period of time when his grandmother is the one that was raising him. She was in the hospital for 3 or 4 days, or maybe a week. It was quite a few days. And he did stay with us during that time, maybe 2 months ago or so. But Foster and Tim were both aware of that. Since then, she passed away. She was the one raising him. And I had applied for adoption for him to oversee his care because he is autistic. But Dad has stepped in and has a room for him at his home, and that has been where he's primarily been staying.
Okay. And when Dane stays with you, you said he visits with you. How long does he visit?
Typically, the way the bus is set up right now, he's dropped off at our house every evening. And then he usually eats dinner with us. And then I take him to his dad's sometime in the evening.
Okay.
It varies.
And I realize you're not a doctor, but on the level of spectrum, is he severely autistic or mildly autistic?
I'm just kind of getting into all that because I really wasn't sure at first. But from what I was told the other day, he is on the moderate spectrum and also has a low IQ disability as well.
Okay. Can he communicate with the children?
Yes, he's fully able to communicate and has no physical limitations or anything like that.
Okay. And he's not a danger to others?
No.
Okay. Pass the witness, Your Honor.
All right, Mr. Jackson.
Thank you. Ma'am, when you were asked about Mr. Portillo's visitation, you were saying that, that he shouldn't, that his visitation ought to be supervised. But throughout the conversations that you and your husband have had with Mr. Portillo, he's not asked you all for unsupervised visitation, has he?
No, he's fully understanding that this is going to be a process. She doesn't even know him, so he's been very understanding of that and willing to just do whatever we think and agree with that's best for Abraham.
Okay. In fact, y'all are even trying to take your time and step into this you're going to be careful how you come to introduce him to her as her father, right?
Correct. We're not even going to mention that right away. I don't think that she would truly even understand anyway. They're already so confused with parental roles at this point that we don't want to confuse them anymore. So.
Okay, fair enough. And you were you present when Mr. Portillo testified? Could you hear that?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And he had testified that he had paid you all some child support. Is that correct?
That's correct. As he said, 2 payments of $250 and then a second one of $200.
Okay. And it's my understanding, according to his testimony, that he's wanting to take these baby steps in Abram's life to where it develops into more and more time with the child, hopefully going into unsupervised. Is that kind of y'all's goal too?
Yes, correct.
And of course, he definitely would like to develop a relationship so that he could have some sort of modified holiday possession as well. Is that your understanding too?
Correct. That is what we've discussed as a goal.
Okay. All right. And you all have something, well, I believe you just testified, you all have something set up this weekend so that you can start this process, right?
That's correct.
And Mr. Portillo had also asked during his testimony, he was hopeful that he may, if this child is placed with you and your husband, that he would have some sort of electronic access to the child, do some FaceTime from time to time. Would you all be opposed to that?
No, I think that's a great idea.
Okay. Since Mr. Portillo has been involved in this case, from what you have experienced or observed from your communications with him, has he been a responsible person, responsible parent in this case?
Yes, he took responsibility from day one before he even really knew for sure. He's been very responsive and communicating with us on a regular basis through the whole thing.
Okay. And then finally, your testimony was when you were making reference to Candace that you were stating that long-term, I think your words, long-term sobriety would make you more comfortable. Is that correct?
Correct.
Is that because of all the history in the past?
Essentially, yes.
Okay. All right. I'll pass the witness, Your Honor.
All right, Mr. Adams.
Thank you. Ms. Dominguez, do you know James Hathaway?
I have met him, but I'm not really familiar with him on a personal level.
Okay, you've met him as in his relationship with Miss Roby?
I actually knew him when he was a teenager, like younger. I dated one of his cousins, I believe, or uncle, somebody related to him when he was younger. So I knew him briefly then, and then more recently, I guess, yes, when he was dating Candace. I had come into contact with him a couple times, but that's about it.
Okay, have you ever had any bad contact with him?
No.
Okay, thank you, Miss
Angus.
Dominguez. I'll pass the witness.
All right, thank you. Ms. Ratliff?
Yes, sir. Ms. Dominguez, I think when Mr. Jackson was questioning you, he asked you, about the long-term sobriety. But isn't it also the stability that we need to see in mom long-term? Would you agree with that?
I would agree.
And right now we're about 8 months and that's great, correct? You're getting
That's
along with her?
Yeah, it's great. And as time's gone on, our communication and relationship has improved, and it's really good.
Okay. And we talked about PMC with PCA. I'm sorry, I have several flies in here I'm trying to get rid of. And is it your understanding, well, let me ask you, what if you were eligible for that additional financial assistance, how would you use that to benefit the children?
Currently we use that to help pay for some of the things that they're in, like martial arts. Armani's also in a Teams of Tomorrow program that he goes to after school once a week. I know that when all of this is said and done, the after school program would probably be our responsibility to pay for. So that's another thing that would go towards, as well as when we take them on trips or go do fun things with them, things like that. We typically we have a card that some of their payments for martial arts and different things comes out automatically off of those. So then when we get their money, we normally pay that off and that type of thing. But that's what we use it for mainly, as well as like food, things like that, to help feed them.
And we do. Okay, thank you. And would you agree with me that, well, right now you're receiving kinship funds, correct?
Correct.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
So,
Ms. Ratliff, I didn't hear that. I didn't hear your question. Would you repeat it?
I said right now you are receiving kinship funds, correct? And she answered yes.
All right, thank you.
And do you know if those are limited or will stop in any way if the court names the department the permanent managing conservator of the children today?
I haven't asked that question to the foster agency, so I can't answer that for sure, but I don't think, I think the only time that they would stop is if we take full PMC at any point to where the case is closed, I guess you would say.
Which would occur if you were named permanent managing conservator today and the department were dismissed out. Isn't that correct?
Yes, I do believe.
Okay. And also the additional time the department is involved could be used for continued sobriety for mother, correct?
Correct.
to work through the parts of the step up visitation schedule that we've all talked about today, correct?
Correct.
Improve communication. Would you also agree with me that would help give you more time to rebuild your bond with Candace and her sobriety?
Yes.
And the children are also in therapy. Do you know whether or not, if you're named PM's permanent managing conservator today or at the end of this hearing, if they will be able to continue, at least Armani is in therapy, will he be able to continue in individual therapy with his current provider? Do you know?
I believe he could definitely continue it, but I'm sure the Medicaid would end, so we would have to pay for it, essentially.
Okay. And there's been some discussion about Abram not at this time, due to her age, didn't qualify for therapy.
They thought she was too young until she was at least 3. So they have not started, she just turned 3 earlier this year. So they have not started individual counseling with her yet, but they have introduced her into the family counseling with mom.
Okay, and would this also allow individual counseling to start for Abram, and for that to continue to be provided if we do PMC if the court orders PMC to the department today or St. Francis?
Yes, I know they're open to at any point starting counseling individually with her at any point.
And your nephew, the 14-year-old, or any other individual or child you would have in your household, you would always ensure that you kept these children safe and protected, correct?
That's correct. I notified Tim as well as the foster agency right away when I knew that I was going to have him in my home. And they have done a background check on him and listed him as a frequent visitor and everything. So yes, I'm always in good communication with Tim and with the foster agency. And I don't think there's ever been a time that they were unsupervised with him either. So.
Okay. When he comes, it sounds like he's just there for a few hours after he gets out.
Right.
Okay.
There is an occasional time that he might stay the night, but it's not on a continual basis. But yes, he is over every day in the evening.
Okay. And with your plans to adopt him that you mentioned earlier, are there any current plans to follow through on that, given where he's at being back with his dad?
I filed the motion before his grandmother passed away. That was her wishes, was that we would adopt him, and we agreed to that. That is still pending a judge's signature, I believe. So I have not canceled that, no. And main reason being because the situation with his dad is similar to this, I would say. There's a lot of history with drug addiction with the dad. And so because of his disability, I feel like it would be in the best interest of him to have someone oversee his care, even if he was with his dad, if that makes sense. So I will continue to go through with the adoption.
Okay.
For him.
But today you don't have any idea when that might be consummated, or court may hear that?
No, as of right now, the mother is in New Mexico, and we don't have any way to contact her, and that's kind of the holdup. They have to post a notification in the courthouse for 45 days or something before they can proceed.
If things continue to go well with his father, are you still planning to adopt him?
I will still continue to the adoption, like I said, so that I would have supervisory protection over him, if that makes sense. But he would probably live with his dad. I just make sure that he continues his sobriety and stays on the right path. And
it sounds like you were working with that father, just
right.
Like you were working with Mr. Portillo, correct?
Right.
And beginning to work with Candace, correct?
Right.
Thank you. Pass the witness.
All right. Anyone have follow-ups? I'll start with, let's see. Who called her? I can't remember. You did, didn't you, Mr. Alley?
I did, Your Honor. I don't have any further questions of her.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Jackson, anything further?
Just briefly, Your Honor, ma'am, just to try to edify the court just a little bit, you all, it's obvious to all of us, you all have a lot of mouths to feed in that house. And so I'm curious to know, are you employed, ma'am?
I am. I work for Xcel Energy full-time.
Okay, what do you do for them?
Customer service. I'm on the phones all day.
Okay.
Yeah.
And your husband, what does he do?
He works for a water well drilling company out of Groom full-time as well.
Okay. And have y'all been at those jobs for some time now?
Yes, me 3 years in March, and him, I would say it's around the same.
Okay. And y'all are earning enough income to be able to support this family that y'all have grown?
Yes, we make enough income to pay all the bills and all of that. It's just, paying for the extra activities and things of the kids sometimes become troublesome without help. But yes, we maintain our bills and utilities and all of that well.
Okay. That's all I have, Your Honor. I'll pass the witness.
All right, Mr. Adams, anything further?
Nothing further, Your Honor.
All right, Ms. Ratliff, anything further?
No, sir.
All right, then. Ms. Dominguez, thank you for your testimony. Let me just ask you, if anybody objects, I can't, but would you like to listen into the rest of this hearing? You've got a stake in it, obviously.
Sure, I would like that.
Okay. And if something happens, does anybody object to her staying in? She can always watch it on YouTube if anybody objects. I understand that.
No objection, Your Honor.
No objection.
No
No
objection.
objection.
Okay,
No
so
objection.
Mr. Dominguez, I'm going to leave you in the hearing. Anytime you want to drop off for whatever reason, you can. And if then you want to come back, you can always go to Northern Panhandle Child Protection Court and it'll be on YouTube. Okay, thank you for
thank
your
you.
testimony, ma'am. All right, Mr. Alley, any further witnesses?
No, Your Honor, arrest at this point in time, we may want to call, depending on what everybody else does, I may want to call one or both of the other parties.
Okay, then Mr. Michelson, any witnesses?
Yes, Your Honor, I'd call Candace Roby. How old are you, Candace?
38.
38. And how long have you been sober now?
Since January 17th of this year.
Okay, and your addiction was one of the reasons why this case came to be, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you heard testimony earlier about it took you a while to get into treatment. Why did it take you so long to get into treatment?
Waiting for a bed. It's kind of hard in the state of Texas. They put you on waiting lists, and I was on several waiting lists for several different facilities. And then one finally accepted me in Lubbock, Texas, which was Grace Manor.
Okay. And how long were you in treatment?
Almost 45 days.
And was there any aftercare after treatment?
Well, the aftercare was, I did every Wednesday, I would drive to Lubbock and do a class that was 3 to 4 hours. But it was a very intensive treatment facility. 6 o'clock, you started group, and then about 9 o'clock, 9:30 at night, the groups were over.
Do you have a sponsor?
Yes, I do.
Okay. How often do you talk to your sponsor?
Actually, my sponsor is a therapist that I had in rehab, Miss Sandy. I talk to her every other day.
Okay. And you've heard that one of the concerns of the department was your past history of drug use. Have you ever had a period of sobriety this long?
Yes, I have.
Okay. And how long was that period of sobriety?
3 years.
Okay. So you know what to do in terms of sobriety?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And currently, well, let me back up. Your mother passed away about the time of this case, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And the house that you live in was owned by your mother, correct?
Yes, sir.
And as part of her will, her desire was that the house be given to the children, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So the two younger children are actually joint possessors of the property?
Yes, there's 4 of them that are.
4, okay. And has that ever been a dispute between you and your siblings?
About me staying here, yes. My brother said that I didn't deserve to live in my mom's house, which is fine. Sorry.
Let me back up. Was that before or after you got sober?
This was just recently, actually.
Okay.
My
And
brother would like to reside in my mom's house.
Okay. And how many bedrooms are in that house?
3 bedroom, 2 bath. And then there is a back house that will eventually be fully connected hopefully.
Okay. And you're currently employed right now?
Yes, sir.
What was your date of employment?
It was in June 11th. The exact date, June 11th.
How many hours a week do you work?
I work over 40 hours a week. I get about anywhere from 128 hours to 130 hours every 2 weeks.
Okay. And what do you do?
I assembly tubes,
Like a welder or assembler or?
an assembler.
Okay. All right. And you've heard the testimony that they were concerned about your past behavior. Everybody has a past, right? There's nothing you can do about that.
Yes, sir.
What are you doing to try to persuade the department and your siblings that you're not the same person?
I just work to be a better person every day.
Okay, and how do you do that?
Work, AA, provide for my kids, be an active parent.
Okay, and how often do you communicate with your brother and sister-in-law about your children?
Not as much as I would like. I would like to communicate more. I heard that they communicate with the step-on a little more than me, which kind of hurt a little bit, but it's understandable.
Do you have a telephone, right?
Yes, sir.
Any reason you can't call your brother?
I do. I talk to my brother quite a bit, and then me and Melissa communicate, but not as much. We don't communicate as much like I would want to, and like receiving pictures and stuff like that. I don't get pictures. They don't send me pictures like they do my sister Kelly. I get pictures through my sister Kelly will send me what Melissa sends her.
Okay. Is that anything you've ever asked of them to send you some pictures?
Not really, because I don't think I should have to ask. Or like they have a family texting and I'm not in it. I haven't been in it.
Have you asked to be part of that?
No.
Okay. All right. You've completed your services?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And were they beneficial to you?
Yeah, they are, especially the one I took with Tim and Amarillo. That was a great one. The rehab did more for me than CPS did, and I'm not trying to be mean about that. But I got more out of that than I did with CPS and their classes.
Your relationship with your caseworker got off to a pretty slow and suspicious start. How would you describe your relationship with him now?
My relationship with him now is great, but at the beginning it wasn't. It's like I feel like they already had their sides picked on what they wanted for my kids.
Okay.
But now it's good. Me and Tim play several times a week.
Okay, great. Would you like your children returned?
Oh, most definitely.
And why do you think your children should be returned?
Because I want the opportunity to be a mom. Sorry for crying. So my mom was one of my biggest enablers. And I know that's wrong to say, but really my whole family's never really allowed me to be a parent. It's always, I don't parent correctly. I guess the way they want me to do, and I do get it. I was my addiction, but my kids were never present with my addiction. I just want the opportunity to be a mom and to prove to everybody that I can parent. I can be a mom. It hurts me when my kids cry because they have to leave and they want to stay here. They don't understand why they can't stay in their home, especially Armani, because him and my mom were best friends. So it's hard. And then I have to explain to them that they have to go home, which Melissa and my brother are amazing to my kids. And if anything was to ever happen, my kids would be left with my brother. Like that's been since day one, since I've had my oldest daughter, Alexia. He's their godfather. I just want the opportunity to be a mom.
You understand that trust is a hard thing to build with people, right?
Yes, I do, because I do have trust issues.
Okay.
So I do understand that.
Okay. And do you feel like you're a danger to your children?
No, not at all. Not to any of my nieces and nephews as well.
Okay. And you've heard testimony of concerns about your relationship with Mr. Hathaway, and the only reason you don't have a relationship with him is because he's in prison.
Yeah, me and Hathaway wasn't in a relationship even prior to his incarceration for several months. It was a really toxic relationship. And I do agree that I did make mistakes trying to make him be a father. And I do know that you can't force anybody to be a father. And I grew up in a broken home, so I didn't want that for my kids because he did take the role on being Abraham's father. So when he was sober and he was good, good dad. But me and him, no. I wish the best for him. I pray for him that he gets out and he does right, but no, we have no future together.
Okay. Pass the witness, Your Honor.
Mr. Albee, any questions?
And I may have just missed it, Miss Roby. You said you were working at SWM. You're working 130 hours or so every 2 week period, correct?
Yes, sir.
How much are you making per hour?
I only make $15 an hour.
Okay. I didn't get that part. And are you paying child support for any other children right now?
I pay child support for Aslan, and I provide, I do help my sister Kelly. Well, my kids, Alexia and Austin were residing with me until 30 days ago when Tim Cobalt said that they couldn't reside with me because of this case. So now they're staying with my sister Kelly Cummings, but I provide all financials for them. And I do financially help my brother Melissa out, like with the needs and stuff with the kids, like their school clothes and all that. If they ask, I give. I have no problem with any of that.
Right now, today, who's living in the house that you're living in? Other than
Just me.
Okay, that's what I needed to know. Thank you, Miss Roby. I'll pass it.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson.
No questions, Your Honor.
All right, Mr. Adams.
Ms. Roby, you just testified that you don't intend to have a relationship with Mr. Hathaway when he gets out of prison. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And your relationship with him prior to him going to prison was toxic. Is that what you said?
Yes, sir.
Did he have a relationship with Armani?
He had a relationship with both of Abraham. He considered Abraham his daughter too, because he's been there since day one. Well, when he was good. Yeah, he did. But his addiction, he didn't. No, not when he was sober, he did. He was a good dad when he was sober. Real good dad when he was sober.
So you believe if he was to stay sober and correct his behaviors from the past, that he would be a good father?
Yes, I do believe that.
Thank you. No further questions, Your Honor.
All right, Ms. Ratliff.
Ma'am, how long were you in a relationship with Mr. Hathaway before the two of you broke up?
We were on and off for 10 years.
Okay. So, and you said you only just broke it off for good about 2 months before he was incarcerated. Is that correct?
No, several months before he was incarcerated. Way more than 2 months. I was in another relationship before he got incarcerated.
All right, listen, y'all are talking over each other, and
Oh,
I
sorry.
can't hear you, so I'm sure the court can't. So
You were in another relationship? Explain that to me.
I was in a relationship with Michael Smith for 7 months before James was incarcerated.
Okay. So were you in this relationship with Michael Smith at the time the children were removed from you?
I wasn't with nobody when the children were removed from me.
Okay. Who's Weldon Black?
He's my 10-year-old's dad.
Okay. And to your knowledge, does Mr. Black have criminal or CPS history?
Mr. Black has been sober for more than 12, 13 years.
I have to speak over there. I'm going to object to non-responsive.
thank you. Ma'am, if you'll just answer the question that she asked you as briefly as you can.
Yes, with me and Austin, he was.
And is Austin one of your biological children?
Yes,
And who has custody of Austin?
my sister Kelly Cummings.
Okay, all right. And Kelly, I think you said earlier she has another one of your children with her now, correct?
Yes, Alexia.
Okay. And why are those children not in your care again?
Because 30 days, about a little over 30 days, Tim Cobalt said they couldn't reside with me anymore prior to this case.
Is the intention for Austin and Alexia to come back and live with you if Abraham and Armani come back to you as well?
Yes, ma'am.
Or is it to have them back in your home immediately?
Yes, ma'am.
If the court were to allow them to come into your home first, and these children to be transitioned in during a permanent custody period, do you agree with me that that might be a possible solution to explore?
Yes, yes, ma'am.
Okay. And at some point, ma'am, do you understand when we talk about a step-up schedule, that at some point the children will be able to spend the night? Do you understand what that is?
Sorry, you're cutting out.
Y'all, please don't talk over each other.
I'm sorry, she keeps cutting out, Judge.
Both of you are cutting out.
There's a lag.
Maybe.
I'll pause.
I didn't get the end of your question, Teresa.
I'm
I
not
heard-
frozen. Is everybody frozen?
I'm not frozen.
I'm not frozen. Teresa, what I got was that at some point the children would be able to spend the night with you. And then you said something else, but I didn't get.
I don't know what the issue is with my internet, but you're at 8 hours right now. And I think where I was asking you a question, ma'am, was, and I don't know if we lost people. Can everybody hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. My question to you was that, do you understand that a step-up schedule will ultimately allow these children to spend overnights in your household?
Yes, ma'am, I do.
And do you understand that if the department's named permanent managing conservatorship, that would give you more time to establish your sobriety, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And at some point you had up to 3 years sobriety. And why did you lose your sobriety?
I could say 1,000 things, but I guess when you're not done, you're not done. If you're not ready for it, eventually it's going to come back on you.
Okay, so if you have gone 3 years before and you weren't done, why do you believe the court should put these children back home in your home today when you've got 8 months of sobriety?
Because I'm done. Like I've never had an employment this long either. I've never completed anything in school and I'm almost completed. There ain't no going back for me. It's only up from here.
Okay. When will you be done with school?
Hopefully at the end of December.
All right. Are you currently in any relationship?
No, ma'am.
And who is going to be the caregivers for the children while you're at school or at work?
Well, my work, I currently work nights, but my work are willing to work with me to set me on a schedule to where they'll be at school or daycare while I'm at work. And then when it's about 5 o'clock or whatever, when daycare or school and after school activities are over, I will be at home with them.
Okay. I'm sorry. Were you done?
And then school, I just do school from 1 to 4 on Mondays and Wednesdays.
Who will be your caregiver? So they'll be in daycare or at school?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you have transportation?
Yes, ma'am.
And who's your backup caregiver? Say one of the children gets sick at daycare. Have you thought about that? Who you're going to use?
Kelly Cummings.
Okay. And she's going to continue to live next door?
Kelly Cummings resides at her old house. She had completely moved out and moved back into her home.
Okay. I'll pass the witness.
Right. Ms. Roby, when you finish your schoolwork in December, let's assume you finish in December, Is your plan then to work as a phlebotomist and not have to keep this job where you work overnights?
Yes, sir. And I do, if the kids do return home, I will switch back to days at my job as well. That is a possibility that they do know my situation, and they're willing to work whatever I need, any hours I need. I just got to set a plan up for them and present it to them.
All right. And Ms. Ratliff was asking you about backup caregivers and so forth. Would you be comfortable to ask the Dominguezes for help? Because they've obviously done a good job with your kids during this case.
Yes, sir. My family is, well, really it'd be all my family. Cause you know, I have several sisters and then my brother, but, most definitely, it would be Kelly Cummings, but my number one go-to would be the Dominguezes, of anything.
Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. Anyone else have further questions for Ms. Roby? All right, then.
I have one question to ask.
Go ahead.
Ma'am, you testified that you're 38 years old. At what age were you when you first began using methamphetamine?
I was 16.
Okay. All right. Thank you, ma'am. Pass the witness.
Anyone else?
No questions.
All right. Mr. Michelson, did you have any other witnesses?
No other witnesses, Your Honor.
All right. Mr. Jackson, witnesses.
No witnesses, Your Honor.
All right. Mr. Adams.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'd like to call James Hathaway. Mr. Hathaway, how long have you been in prison?
Since August of 2022
And what are you in prison for?
for possession of a controlled substance.
And since you've been in prison, have you had any classes related to substance abuse?
Yes, sir. I'm currently in the changes class, which takes it covers drug, alcohol, domestic violence, and parenting.
So that class also takes care or covers domestic violence as well?
Yes, sir.
You believe those classes have helped you?
Yes, sir.
Do you understand the material that is being presented in those classes?
Yes, sir, I do.
Do you recognize the problems that you've had in the past?
Yes, sir.
Do you believe that those classes have helped you change?
Yes, sir, I have.
How old was Armani when you went to jail?
It was 4.
And did you have a relationship with him?
Yes, sir.
Did you feel like you had a good relationship with him?
Yes, sir.
Did you also have a relationship with Abraham?
Yes, sir, I have.
Do you feel like you could, if given the chance, help be a father to Armani?
Yes, sir.
Are you asking the court to allow you to be a possessory conservator and develop a relationship or continue to develop your relationship with Armani?
Yes, sir, I am.
Have you had any visits with Miss Roby since you've been in prison?
No, sir, I have not.
Do you intend to have a relationship with Miss Roby when you get out of prison?
No, sir.
So there's no intention of getting back together?
No, sir. Just if we can co-parent. But other than that, no relationships. No, sir.
Okay. Have you met the Dominguez family?
Yes, sir.
Can you work with the Dominguez family as well, do you believe?
Yes, sir.
So would you work with them if they had a conservatorship of the children when you get out of prison?
Yes, sir.
Okay. When do you think you might get out of prison?
I get out February 4th.
Do you have, so that's a set date that they've made for you?
Yes, sir. It's my short way. And if I since I completed this drug program, I should reach that day. I should get out on that day. Yes, sir.
Okay. No further questions, Your Honor.
All right. Mr. Hathaway, is that date in February, is that a parole date or is that when you finish your sentence regardless?
That's my parole date, sir.
Okay. I've heard this from a lot of convicts over the years. You don't necessarily, you may or may not be out if
Yes,
you're
sir.
eligible
It's all up
for
to
parole.
them, but I should like it. That's the date that it has on the computer.
Okay, well, I've heard that for many years, but that's just you're eligible for parole on that date. Is that
Yeah, well,
what you're telling me?
No, sir. I've already made my parole. I'm just working this program, and my short way, which is half my time, comes up on February 4th, and I'm to be released on the date of February 2nd because that would be on a Friday. Because on the February 4th it falls on a Sunday, so they should release me on that Friday.
Okay, all right. Mr. Alley, do you have any questions for Mr. Hathaway?
No, Your Honor.
Mr. Michelson?
No, Your Honor.
Mr. Jackson?
No questions.
Ms. Ratliff?
Just a few, Judge. Mr. Hathaway, do you agree with Ms. Roby's description of the history of your relationship prior to your incarceration?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so your relationship went back 10 years, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And then that you had only been separated, and her version of several months would be 7 months she was with this other man. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am. But it's been off and on for the 10 years. We haven't been together for 10 years straight, but it's been off and on.
Okay. During the times that you and Ms. Roby were in a relationship, were you using drugs together?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And there's been some indication that there's a history of violence, and Ms. Roby had reported that at the beginning of the case. You haven't had any chance yet to demonstrate what you've learned and changes. Would you agree with me?
Yes, ma'am. I agree.
Can you tell me what you think you've learned that's would cause you to act differently in the future?
I find myself, yes, ma'am. I find myself to be a lot more humble, a lot more clear-minded. I'm not going to use violence no more. I've taken a turn in my life where I'm not going to use violence at all no more. Like, I don't think about violence. I'm never I'm not going to do that no more. And like I said, I'm a lot more humble in my decision making, and I'm gonna put my kids first before anything. Like I said, we're not gonna have no relationship besides if it's got to do with the kids. So I got to put my kids first, and that's what I've been working on.
So you're not objecting today if you were to be named a possessory conservator and your visits once you're released are supervised, correct?
Yes, ma'am. But I mean, the only thing that I disagree upon is the time, like y'all saying it'd be like a short period of time, which I mean, I think I should get an amount of time. I mean, supervised, I think as long as they want me there, I should be okay. I don't think my time with them should be scheduled or nothing, you know?
Okay. What do you think should happen before you should go from supervised to unsupervised?
I think I need to build the relationship with them because I know how it is, me not being there. I don't even know. I mean, I know they know me, but I don't know if they because I got a 10-year-old too. I never been around. And so whenever I got back into her life, all of a sudden she was scared because I was a stranger to her. So
Okay,
I know I needed.
Excuse me.
I need to take steps.
Excuse me, Mr. Hathaway. Mr.
Yes,
Hathaway, excuse me.
Yes, sir.
Just answer the question you're asked, please.
Okay. I need to take steps to building up a trusting relationship with them.
Would you agree that it would also be important to have some drug testing, clean drug testing after your release, given your drug history?
Oh, for sure. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So any restrictions like that the court was inclined to put in place for your visits to step up to the next level, you're gonna do what you're ordered to do. Is that what you're saying today?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And it sounds to me, sir, that it really doesn't. I don't know if you have a preference as far as where these children go or what this court does in terms of who is the managing conservator after this hearing. What is your request today?
I request that. I mean, I believe that they should have another chance to be put in Candace's custody because I believe that she's the mother and they need the mother. But at the same time, I do understand where y'all coming from, where they need to be
Okay.
placed with dinguses too.
Sir,
I believe that.
excuse me, she just asked you where you want them placed, and that's a short, simple answer.
Okay, yes, sir. My bad. I'm sorry.
Just the way I understand it, he's not really has a preference today. So I'm going to pass the witness.
All right. Mr. Hathaway, how old are you?
I'm 30, sir.
And what did you do for a living before you went to prison?
Well, I worked in the oil field for a while, but before I came to prison, I was unemployed.
Okay, so you've talked about what you've been doing as far as the drug treatment and violence in prison. Have you learned any skills that you're going to use when you get out of prison to earn a living?
Yes, sir.
What's that?
Living skills, my basic people skills. Skills, yes, sir.
Okay. All right, then. Thank you. Anybody else have further questions for Mr. Hathaway?
No, sir.
Oh, Your
All right.
I just have one, Your Honor, if you don't mind.
Nope.
Mr. Hathaway, if you get out in February, you'll be on parole. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And how long will you be on parole?
For 2 years.
2 years? Okay.
Yes, sir.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Anyone else? All right, then, Mr. Adams, did you have any other witnesses?
No, sir.
And Ms. Ratliff, did you have any witnesses?
Judge, I do not have any witnesses.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Alvey, you mentioned maybe calling another witness. Do you have any other witnesses at this time?
I do not, Your Honor. Well, just to cover myself, I would call Miss Krista Leal.
Okay.
Miss Leal, when this case started, you intervened into the case asking for custody of Armani and Abrian. Are you okay with the children remaining in the Dominguez's home?
Yes.
And so you're not seeking custody of those two children now?
No, I had the children for a year before they went with Kelly, which is when I intervened. And there was a history between Candace and me while I had the children in my custody, and CPS was investigating, but there was no open case at the time.
Okay. So I guess my question is that you're fine with the children remaining in the Dominguez's care?
Yes, they're thriving there.
Do you believe that it's better for them to be in the Dominguez care or in Miss Roby's care?
The Dominguez's care. I love my sister, and she's doing amazing. I'm very proud of her, and I don't want to discount that, but I feel like she needs more time.
Thank you, Miss Leah. Your Honor, that's all the questions I have. I'll pass it.
Okay, Mr. Mickelson, questions?
No questions, Your Honor.
Mr. Jackson?
No questions, Your Honor.
Mr. Adams?
No questions, Your Honor.
Ms. Ratliff?
Just a few, Judge. Ms. Leal, when was
Yes,
the
ma'am.
last time, to your recollection, that these children actually resided with Candace?
February of 2021.
All right. And when you say that they're thriving in the Dominguez home, describe what you mean by that.
They're happy. Not that they weren't happy here with Kelly, but they have structure. They have people that love them, and we all still get to see them all the time, but they're happy. They're very happy.
Thank you, Judge. I'll just pass the witness.
Okay. Anyone else have questions for Ms. Leal?
No, sir.
No. All right, then. Okay, then if no one else has other witnesses, everyone rest and close.
I'll close, Your Honor. Yes.
I'll rest. And Judge, do you want me to make my statement to the court?
Yes, ma'am. Give me your recommendations.
Judge, my recommendation at this time is that the department take permanent managing conservatorship until it can be transferred to the Dominguez's with all parents named as possessory conservator. I want to commend Ms. Roby for her progress, but for the stability, safety, and structure of the children, I believe that this is appropriate and in their best interest. They love their mom. They love, the ones they do. They love the place where they're at. And I think we're at a very good point where the parties can start working together. But if the court were to just dismiss the department out today, I believe that would be a big detriment to these children. We just need more time.
Good. All right then. Okay, I'm going to take this case under advisement, give it some more thought. And then I will rule by email to all the parties. And let's see, yeah, I haven't heard from Casa.
Well, hello. I agree with what Tim said for permanency. Since Melissa, how can I say this? Since they're very happy there, I mean, the kids are happy there. And so I agree with Tim.
Okay, well, we talked about a lot of different things. Yeah,
I know.
Ms. Coberly, you understand that there's some financial benefits to the Dominguez's if the department is named permanent managing conservator rather than them being named that today. So would you agree with me that they've gone above and beyond, and anything we can do to help them for what they've done would be a good thing?
Yes.
Okay, I think I know where you're coming from.
Okay.
Okay, then I'll take it under advisement. I'll rule by email, and we'll go from there. So thank y'all for your testimony. You finished on time, Mr. Albee. I've got a few extra minutes to get back to Amarillo. I appreciate that.
I try real hard, Your Honor.
Okay, y'all have a good rest of your week. Have a good weekend.
You too. Bye-bye.